I never expected to fall in love with a human. That is perhaps the most honest way I can begin this account, filed here for the collective archives on this, the 42nd day after the events at Oran 9. The High Council requested a formal report. What they will receive instead is something closer to a confession, because I cannot describe what I witnessed without first explaining who I was before I witnessed it. My name is Vaylith Sorun Keth. I am the third daughter of the Sorun diplomatic line, trained from childhood in the art of careful words and careful silences. My people, the Keth, have not fought a war in 800 years. We are proud of this. We speak of it at ceremonies, carve it into the walls of our council halls, teach it to our children as the greatest achievement of our civilization. 8 centuries of peace. 8 centuries of growth and art and expansion without bloodshed. I believe this made us wise. I believe this made us advanced. I am no longer sure what I believe. When first contact with humanity was established, I was assigned to lead the diplomatic effort. The human delegation was respectful, intelligent, occasionally funny, in ways I did not immediately understand. Their lead negotiator, a man named Darian Holt, was quiet in a way that I initially mistook for shyness. He listened more than he spoke. When he did speak, he chose his words the way someone selects stones to cross a river, each one tested before any weight was placed on it. The political marriage was my suggestion, not the council's. I had studied enough of human history to know that alliances sealed by ceremony tend to hold longer than those sealed only by ink. And I will admit, because this is a document meant for truth, that I was not entirely acting from political calculation. There was something about Darian Holt that I found myself returning to in my thoughts, the way your tongue finds a loose tooth. Not painful, just present. He agreed to the marriage with characteristic understatement. I think that could work, he said, which I later learned was the human way of saying yes to something they very much wanted. Our early life together was quiet and warm. He cooked meals for me on weekends, trying to find human foods that my biology could tolerate, failing often, laughing about it every time. He had a garden on the small balcony of our diplomatic residence, strange compact plants with purple flowers that served no practical purpose whatsoever. He watered them every morning before doing anything else. I noticed things about him, small things that I cataloged without understanding. He always sat facing the door in restaurants. I assumed it was a preference for the view. He slept lightly, and always on the side of the bed closest to the entrance of the room. I assumed he simply liked that side. When we attended formal events, his eyes would move around the space within the first few minutes in a way that was almost invisible, unless you were trained to observe people professionally, as I was. He would note the exits, the crowd density near the main doors, the position of security personnel. Then he would relax and become the warm and attentive companion I knew, and I would tell myself I had imagined the brief survey. I had not imagined it. He had medals in a small case at the back of our closet. I found them once while looking for a spare blanket. I asked about them that evening. He smiled and said they were from a long time ago, and changed the subject so smoothly that it took me several minutes to realize the subject had been changed. I let it go. I told myself there would be time to learn everything. We had, after all, what I imagined would be a long and peaceful life ahead of us. I wrote in my personal journal during that period that I felt I finally understood humans, that they were, beneath all the noise of their complicated history, simply people who wanted the same things everyone wants: safety, warmth, connection, a garden with flowers that serve no practical purpose. I was not wrong about any of that. I was only wrong about it being the whole picture. The summit on Oran 9 was scheduled to be a formality. The treaty between the Keth Collective and the human nations had already been written, reviewed, and approved. All that remained was the ceremony of signatures, a reception, and 3 days of cultural exchange programming that I had personally coordinated down to the menu. 42 delegates from the collective, 18 from the human side, and a neutral station crew of around 200. Security was present but light. Because Oran 9 was considered one of the safest neutral locations in the sector, and because nobody anticipated that the Vreth Dominion would move so quickly, or so violently, against a treaty they had been informed of only weeks before. I will not dwell on the first minutes of the attack. They are documented elsewhere in this report with the cold precision they deserve. What I will say is that sound arrived before understanding. A pressure wave, that knocked several delegates from their seats, followed by a silence that lasted perhaps 2 seconds, followed by everything happening at once. The Vreth shock troops came through 3 separate breach points simultaneously. They were organized and fast, and within 4 minutes they had taken control of the main corridor connecting the summit hall to the docking bays. The station's security forces, professional and well-trained, were simply not prepared for the scale and coordination of the assault. I watched 2 of them fall in the first exchange, and felt something cold move through me that I did not have a name for at the time. I have since learned that humans call it dread. Around me, my people were doing what our people do, looking to each other, seeking consensus, waiting for someone with authority to provide direction. We are a civilization built on deliberation. It is one of our greatest strengths. In that moment, it was a liability so severe that I cannot write it without shame. Darian was 3 meters away from me when the breach happened. I saw his face in the moment the sound hit, and this is the part I have revisited most in the 42 days since, lying awake in quarters that feel too large without him present while he recovers. I expected fear. Every Keth face around me wore some version of fear. What I saw on Darian's face was something I can only describe as the opposite of surprise. Not calm exactly. Not happiness certainly. Something more like a door opening into a room he had been in before and knew the layout of completely. He was at my side in 2 steps. His voice dropped, which I had never heard it do before. Lower and quieter, and somehow more present than his normal tone, the way a foundation is quieter than the building above it, but holds everything up. Valeth. There is a maintenance corridor behind the 3rd panel on the eastern wall. It connects to the secondary life support bay. You go there, you stay there. You do not come out until I come for you personally. Do you understand? I said yes. He said, I need you to actually go. I went. But I did not go all the way. I stopped where I could still see through a gap in the paneling, and I watched. And what I watched I will now attempt to describe, though I want to note for the record that language was not built to do what I am about to ask of it. He moved through the chaos without adding to it. That is the first thing I noticed. Every other person in that room was generating noise, movement, communication, panic, the sounds of people trying to solve a problem they had never anticipated. Darian subtracted himself from the noise. He found the 3 remaining human security personnel within 30 seconds, using only hand signals I had never seen before, but which they clearly understood perfectly. Something passed between them in those silent signals. A structure, a plan, a shared understanding that took perhaps 15 seconds to communicate, and which I am certain would have taken my people 15 minutes of discussion to reach. They moved. I will not try to describe the technical details of what followed, because I do not have the vocabulary, and because this is not that kind of document. What I will describe is the quality of it, because that is what burned itself into my memory and has not left. He was hit early. Something struck him in the left side, and he paused, a single breath of pause, and then continued. I pressed my hand to my mouth. He did not. He filed the injury somewhere internal, and kept working. The Vreth Dominion fields large soldiers. It is a point of pride for them, size and aggression, as a philosophy. The commander who found Darian was, by any physical measure, a more formidable creature. Taller, heavier, armored in a way that Darian was not. He stopped when he saw Darian. He said something in Vreth that translated roughly to a declaration of easy victory. Darian looked at him. I searched for the right word for the expression on my husband's face during the 7 seconds before he moved. I have been searching for 42 days. The closest I have found is the word patient. Not bored, not afraid, not angry. Patient. The way someone is patient when they already know how a story ends, and are simply waiting for it to arrive at the conclusion. What happened next was brief. It should not have been brief, by any physical calculation I could make. It was brief nonetheless. The Vreth commander did not get up. Darian was already moving to the next problem before the man finished falling. By the time the Vreth forces were fully repelled, 23 minutes after the initial breach, which the human security debrief later described as a remarkable timeline, I had stopped breathing in any meaningful sense, and had simply been existing in the gap in the paneling, watching, and understanding that I had been wrong about something fundamental, and that the wrongness went very deep. He found me in 4 minutes. He knew exactly where I had stopped. which told me that he had known the whole time that I had not gone all the way to the life support bay. He did not comment on this. He took both of my hands in his, and the first words out of his mouth were, "Are you hurt?" I was not hurt. He was bleeding through his shirt on the left side, and had what would later be identified as a fractured bone in his right hand, and his first question was whether I was hurt. I could not speak for a moment. He waited. He was good at waiting. "I watched," I finally said. "I know," he said. "You knew I would. I know you," he said, and he smiled, and this is the detail that undid me completely. He smiled with the same expression he wears when he burns the flatbread on Sunday mornings and tries to serve it anyway as though nothing happened. Easy, warm, entirely himself. The man who waters purple flowers and the man who had just done what I watched him do were not two different men separated by some switch or transformation. They were the same man, whole and consistent, and I had simply not seen all of him before. That night, in the medical bay, while a human doctor worked on his side, I asked about the medals. He was quiet for a long time, long enough that I thought he might deflect again. Then he said, "Bring the case." I brought it. He opened it. He named each one, not with pride, not with regret, just with the plain voice he uses for facts. This one was for a specific action in a specific place. That one was for a decision made under conditions I could barely imagine. The last one, the smallest one, he held for a moment before naming, and I noticed that his hands, which had been steady through everything, were not entirely steady then. I asked him the question I had been afraid to ask. "Did you enjoy it? The fighting?" He set the small medal down carefully. "No," he said, "and yes, and I've been honest enough with myself to know that the real answer doesn't fit into either of those." He looked at me in the way he does when he wants to make sure I'm actually following what he's saying and not just hearing the words. "My people spent thousands of years at war with each other," he said. "Not with aliens, not with outside threats, with ourselves. We got extraordinarily good at it, and the thing about getting good at something over thousands of years is that it becomes part of you, whether you choose it or not. It's in how we think, how we read a room, how we sleep." I thought about the door, the exits, the side of the bed. "We didn't come to the stars already polished," he said. "We came here dragging everything behind us, all of it, the worst parts included." I said, "My people forgot war because we survived it once. You remember it because you survived it 1,000 times." He nodded slowly. "We're not war gods," he said. "We're just the ones who kept getting up." The room was very quiet. Through the small viewport, the stars were completely still and completely indifferent, the way stars always are. I reached over and took his hand, the one that wasn't fractured, and I held it, and I thought about 800 years of peace that my civilization was proud of, and I thought about 10,000 years of survival that his civilization carried silently inside it, like a stone in a pocket, heavy and always present, taken out rarely and never for show. I thought about purple flowers that serve no practical purpose, watered every morning without fail. I understand now what I am filing to these archives. I understand what I married. Not a diplomat who used to be a soldier, and not a soldier wearing a diplomat's manners. I married a man who chose peace the way you choose to put something powerful down, not because it is gone, not because it was never real, but because you have decided, every single day, that the world you are building is worth more than the damage you could do. He chose it. He keeps choosing it. Every quiet morning, every burned flatbread, every purple flower. I am proud to stand beside him. Not because he is a weapon, because he chose to be a shield, and he knew exactly what that choice cost.